Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end. Now let's get started. As we got to the classroom, we were met by a now female Kaminari who was losing his mind screeching at the boys as they all laughed at him. He started crying when he was reminded that he would be facing his various punishments for how he treated Kyoka. Aizawa and I laughed the entire time we were teaching class. Once we finished classes for the day, I ensnared Kaminari with Black Whip and dragged his butt to the girls' floor. The entire time, he was begging to be let go and apologizing for how he treated Kyoka. We all just laughed at his failures to manipulate us into feeling sorry for him and releasing him. Sorry, not sorry, Kaminari. You screwed up hard, so it's time for you to face the punishments. You're now to be the maid for the entirety of the dorms, and Momo here has even created an outfit for you. I said as Momo revealed the extremely salty maid outfit that left very little to cover Kaminari's melons and butt. Kaminari cried, but then said, "Well, thank God it's just his for a week." We all cackled at that. What's so funny? He questioned while stuttering. You're going to be the maid for our class for the entire time we have remaining here at UA. Even after the concoction wears off Kaminari. Also, this is only the first punishment. He paled at that as he thought he only had to be a maid. Nah, zappy nonets, we got's much more SHD plan for ya. He also biddy baby jamming way. Since you can't use your core for the duration of the concoction, there's legit nothing you can do to escape this, said Kyoka with a vicious smile on her face. That made the HRM and myself laugh our butts off. You screwed up hard, Kaminari. As such, every night you will be placed in a stockade, and any of the girls with the assistance of Mitsuki's special tools will be allowed to use them on you. I said with a giggle. Kaminari looked terrified when Mitsuki walked in smiling, like a SDSD. Oh, and just an FYI, Kaminari. That concoction makes SEC excruciatingly painful. Like the worst pain physically possible. So enjoy that, said Mina as the girls all looked like smiling demons. I chuckled as Kaminari was forced to strip and put on the maid outfit, crying the entire time. Oh wow, his melons but are so small they make me look curvy, laughed Kyoka as the girls all started to make fun of Kaminari's figure, making Kaminari cry even more. How does Zappy MC1 Pump not enjoy this? Well, too bad asshat you were the cause for this to happen, I said cruelly, making the HRM laugh even more. After the start of punishments, we went about our day, with at least 2 girls following him to ensure he did the cleanup. That night the girls placed him in the stockade after making him strip. Kaminari wept the whole time trying to beg and plead to earn some form of sympathy, but dude was screwed. He angered the HRM for his words about Kyoka, which is why they are the ones dishing out his punishments. He finally started to realize never PSS off the HRM, as SHD goes sideways real quick if you do. Toru and I headed to my room as the other HRM members made Feminari their SLV. Toru was shuffling her feet and kept opening and closing her mouth. You're nervous, aren't you, Toru? I asked with a soft smile. She nodded and I walked up to her. It's okay. I won't do anything you do not wish to do, Toru. As well, if you at any point want to stop, we will. So relax, Toru. Nothing will happen that you do not want to happen. She smiled a bit as she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Really, Aizu? She asked as I nodded. Yes, Toru. This is up to you. I'm sure the others told you about how I am during SEC, right? I asked if she thought about it before saying, Yozuku. Just so nervous. I am ready for this, but still scary. She stuttered out as she walked to the edge of the bed. Toru, there's nothing to be afraid of. I know you're nervous and scared thinking of the possible outcomes as well as how this may change things. But nothing will change except the fact you will no longer be a virgin. I will not treat you any different than I have since the HRM was formed. I love you just as I love the others. I will never purposefully hurt you. She smiled warmly after hearing that. You mean it, Aizu? She asked as I sat down beside her and pulled her into a hug. Yes, my invisible queen. I promise. That relaxed her quite a bit. Thank you. Sorry for getting so nervous, she said as I giggled a bit. Nah, no worries, Toru. I understand, I said with a smile. She exhaled a deep breath and smiled sadly at me. They all said you would not do anything I wasn't ready for. Hee, I know I should have listened to them, but I guess I'm still finding it hard to accept that you'd really want to be with me, she said as we hugged. I understand. The 11 years of you being invisible was hard on you, Toru. But remember, I too felt like I could never have a partner. On that front, we're the same, both negatively affected due to our quirks. You have been forced to be invisible for 11 years, and me, for my quirk, not appearing for until then entrance exam. We both were bullied and harassed for that. But look at me now. I have the best 9 women a guy could ask for to be my HRM. But I have an idea. I want to try if that's okay. She started fidgeting a bit as I said, I want to teach you how to become visible. Will you let me? I ask as she freezes up. What? Can I really do that, Aizu? She asked softly. I smiled and broke the hug. I believe so. Do you remember how I said I reached my mindscape? She thought for a second before saying yes. Well, our mindscapes are where our vestiges are. I have a feeling yours will have the part of your quirk that will allow you to become visible whenever you wish. She was stunned by the revelation. She stopped for a bit as I explained to her my idea of a SWCH existing in her mindscape. After a few minutes of her grunting with effort, the lights hiding her body slowly glowed softly, and her body began to appear. Appealing. You look absolutely appealing, Toru, I said as I grabbed a mirror that Momo had given me this morning. I showed it to Toru, and she began to weep after finally seeing herself for the first time in 11 years. She hugged and cried into my neck, thanking me profusely for a few minutes. After she finally stopped weeping, she spoke. I don't know what I did to gain the perfect man in you, Izuku, but I will never break the love and trust you have in me. Thank you for all the things you've done for me, she said, gazing deep into my emerald orbs with her violet, teal, yellow eyes. They were violet on top, teal on the bottom, and yellow on the inside. She had appealing, bushy eyebrows, a gorgeous smile, and a cute nose. I smiled at her, blushing at just how appealing Toru truly was. You're most welcome, my turquoise-haired beauty. Now, see if you can turn the invisibility on and off whenever you wish. She nodded and did as asked. It became easier each time she turned off her invisibility. A few minutes later, she was doing it essentially instantly. Boy, are the other members going to be surprised, huh, Aizu? She asked with that appealing, cheery smile. Definitely, Toru. You're going to knock their socks off. She was re-energized as she tackled me into a hug. You're truly the best ever, Izuku. This is one of the best gifts you could have ever given me. I can finally see myself for the first time in years, she said before lifting her head up. True. So are you relaxed now, Toru? She eked and looked into my eyes. Yeah, I'm still nervous, but I'm feeling a lot more relaxed, she said, before I leaned in and kissed her. She melted into the kiss, and we made out for a few minutes. After we broke the kiss, we both were blushing a bit and breathing a bit heavier. I'm ready, Izuku, she said in almost a whisper. I smiled as we both stood up. She started to get undressed as I did as well. Soon, we were just standing there, me and my boxers, her in bra and panties. She took a deep breath and took her bra off as her large D-sized melons revealed themselves. They were a pale white color with small nips and areolas. I looked on in awe at her large melons as I pulled down my boxers, revealing my steel-hard 12-inch pages. Toru drooled a little bit as she grabbed her panties and slowly took them off. She had surprisingly a bald PP. Wow. DMN Toru, you're one of the sexiest women alive. They'll go to say factor PBEZ, our shave surprised me, I said with a giggle, making her laugh a bit. Yeah, I never liked the feel of them rubbing against my clothes. It always felt odd. You didn't think I would be shaved, huh? I nodded as she smiled, noticing my eyes shift around her lithe frame. She had muscular arms, legs, and thighs. A 4-pack of abs and a thick tight butt. Long CC legs and feet, too. She blushed hard after realizing that. Guess you got enthralled by my beauty and CC body, huh? She teased as I just nodded and said yes. That surprised her. I know you were teasing, but you're truly a beauty and have an amazingly CC body. Between that and your real personality, you're a 10 out of 10 in every category. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around my neck as my pee-pee was sandwiched between her stomachs. Thanks, Izuku. Can we kiss before we start? I smiled as I leaned down and kissed her. Yes. How do you wish to start, Toru? She smiled at me and said she wanted to SCK me dry first before we make love. I nodded as I asked how she wanted to do that. She said for me to lay down on the bed and start to blow me. I smiled and nodded as I lay down on the bed. She crawled up onto it and positioned herself between my legs. I may not be as good as the others at this, Izuku, but I have a feeling you're going to enjoy this. She said as she wrapped her hand around my pee-pee, stroking it for a moment before she began liking it, releasing squeaks from me. Then she kissed the tip before winking at me and inhaling my pee-pee as she turned her head and throat invisible. Oh, that's amazing, Toru, I said as she took about 5 inches in and stroked the rest. She started to bob up and down on it, while only taking in about half of my length as she continued stroking me. After a minute or two, she began taking more and more of my member in her mouth. By the time she got all of it inside her as she rubbed my ball wholly. Oh, SHD, this is amazing, Toru, I shouted as I watched my pee-pee go deep inside her and her pull her head off of it. Really, Aizu? I'm glad to hear that. I nodded as she went back to work. It only took about 4 minutes more before I could feel my ball ready to explode down her throat. Release, Toru. She squeaked in reply and pulled her head almost off of it as she stroked the rest with only 3 or 4 inches in her mouth. A few moments later, I shouted, Huli Toru, I'm release Minga. I watched as my jizz shot down her throat as she swallowed every drop. It was awesome seeing the release go down her throat to her stomach before she turned visible again and took her mouth off my pages. God damn in there, right? Your release tastes amazing, Aizu. She shouted, earning a smile from me. Thanks, Toru. What do you wish to do next? She smiled at me. Can we do missionary with me on top? She asked shyly as I smiled and took out a condom wrapping my tool. Of course we can, Toru. You're the one who decides what we can and cannot do. She smiled softly at that as she crawled up me and sat on my abs just above my pages. Thanks for making this feel special, Izuku. She said with a kind smile. Well, it is special, Toru. I'd be a fool not to treat our first time like it's special and important. I don't want you to feel like this doesn't mean anything to me, I said as I could feel her juices flowing on me. You truly are one of a kind, Izuku. Phew, I think I'm ready. Do you know how much this may hurt? Because I've always been told it's really painful. She asked nervously. I smiled. Well, the 418 girls all felt a different level of pain, Toru. It's not always super painful, as you've heard. Each person will feel a different level of pain to no pain at all. It all depends on the girl's hymen and pain tolerances. She took a deep breath at that before nodding, and I lifted her off me and held her just above my raging hard-on. I slowly lowered her onto it, and soon as I felt the hymen against my PP, I sat up a bit, and she wrapped me into a hug as I then laid down with her hugging onto me the whole way down. I asked if she was ready. She nodded, and we each took a breath before I moved up as she moved down, breaking the hymen and taking my length all the way inside her. She yelped loudly as I leaned in to kiss her. Small tears formed in her eyes. After a minute, I broke the kiss as I stroked her hair. She was taking deep breaths in and out. Phew, that hurt quite a bit, but not as bad as I always thought. Give me a couple of minutes, and I'll be ready to start, Izuku, she said as I smiled and nodded. Okay, Toru, I'm glad it didn't hurt you as much as it hurt Momo, I said as she roomed to a few more deep breaths. You're so big, Aizu, she said as I giggled while feeling her BLD leak down my pages. A couple minutes later, she was ready to go, turning her lower body invisible so we both could see me plunging inside of her. We started slow before reaching a moderate speed as she squeaked loud. Oh yes, all right there, Aizu. I lifted her off a bit so I could move up into her, driving her wild from the pleasure. Oh, god damn in, that's amazing, she shouted out, and after a few minutes screamed, fuck, I'm releasing Izuku, as her back arched and her orgasm hit her like a Mack truck. She squirted hard on my PP as I stopped to let her enjoy the orgasm. After it passed, she was breathing raggedly and kissed me. God damn in, Izuku, you have to be the best ever at this, she said after regaining her breath. Thanks. You all say that, so I guess it must be true, I said with a giggle. She smirked at me before asking to transition to cowgirl. I nodded as she sat up with my PP inside her. She swiveled her hips before she began to bounce on my pages, making us both squeak in joy. I grunted in pleasure, and after about 15 minutes, she had release twice more before I finally felt ready to shoot my load. Toru and our release, I said as she lowered back into missionary. 2 more pumps, and I was filling the condom as I grunted and squeaked. The warmth of my release in the condom was enough to make her release again as she screamed my name in pleasure. Once her CLMX ended, she collapsed on top of me, both of us covered in a slick sheen of sweat. We caught our breath as she got off of me when I pulled my PP out of her. God damn, that was amazing, Izuku, she said as I chuckled. I stood up and took off the condom and disposed of it. She was smiling and said, I got 1 or 2 more rounds of me if you want to go again, Izuku. I smirked at that. Oh, really? Then how shall we do it, Invisible Queen? I asked as she smirked. Ever heard of the lotus position, Izuku? She asked as I was confused by it. No. What's the lotus? She smiled and explained that I would essentially sit down, cross-legged, and she would wrap her arms and legs around me as she takes my PP inside her. I was blushing a bit at the extreme intimacy of the position, as we'd basically be hugging as we sat down and did it. I looked at her and nodded as I grabbed another condom. After wrapping up, I sat on the bed, taking the position. She knelt a bit before asking me to lift her up, so she could position herself. I did as asked and held her up as she wrapped her arms and legs around me, and I lowered her onto my PP, using one hand to place it at her entrance while lowering her. I entered her as she shuddered in pleasure and kissed me, between her lifting up and bouncing and myself helping as she did, so we were both experiencing a large amount of pleasure as we made out, both squeaking into the other's mouth. About 16 minutes, and I felt my orgasm coming fast and grunted inside her mouth before breaking the kiss. Oh yes, release, baby, release for me. She squeaked loudly as she CLMXCD, feeling my SBRM fill up the condom. We held each other for a few moments until she said, Phew, DMN Zuku, you wore me out. I thought I'd have another round after, but I'm exhausted. I smiled at her as I disposed of the condom and laid down cuddling with her. Hee hee, sorry for that, but at least you enjoyed it, right? I asked and she laughed. Hell yes, that was awesome. I smirked at her, or awesome, hee hee. We both chuckled for a bit as we lay there. A few minutes later, we both fell asleep. We woke up the next day, still cuddling. Good morning, gorgeous. Hee, how was your sleep? I asked as she was blushing. Fine, hee. Oh, we really did have SEC last night, didn't we, Izuku? I laughed as I nodded. Yes, and it was amazing. She smiled at that as we both got up. She winked at me. Hey, Isa, want to shower together? I blinked a few times. Oh, really? She smiled and nodded at me. I looked at her and smiled. Definitely Toru. We went inside as I turned the shower on, and she grabbed a couple towels, setting them out, so we could grab them right after. Gotta say, I definitely enjoyed that. We didn't have SEC, as her girly bits were too sore, but we did wash each other's bodies, which felt amazing. Once we finished, we toweled off and got dressed. There was a knock on my door, and Toru smiled, going invisible. I went and opened up the door to see the other 8 HRM members and let them in. What's up? I asked as they saw Toru and smirked. So how was it? Toru giggled and said, It was miraculous. Hee hee, look what Isa made happen from it. Teasing as she turned visible before them. Whoa, Toru, you look so appealing. Squealed Mina before she stopped and looked at Toru. Wait, are you saying he did you so good it turned off the invisibility? I laughed hard as the other members face-palmed. She was teasing Mina. Izuku taught her to become visible. Sighed Momo as Toru was laughing her melons off. What? Well, sorry, Mina, that SHD was hilarious. Go ahead and tell them my secrets, ha 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 ha. They can't hear you, alien queen, and I'm the one writing this. You look so cute when you try and look intimidating. Ahem. Anyway, back to the story. After a few minutes of everyone talking, a second knock was heard. I groaned and opened the door to see a miserable Kaminari. DMN Feminari. You look like SHD. How bad did my girls RPE you last night? Too sad to even cry. Feminari just looked at me and said, I think so hard my womb exploded. I'm not gonna lie, dude, you have a huge PP Kasayamamo, made replicas of it for them to use. I don't think I'll be sitting down for a year. I blinked a few times, looking at him and then the girls. Only a year? Well, it seems you're all gonna have to do it again tonight then. Ha ha ha. Feminari groaned and flinched. Oh, quit your beaching jamming way. Or we'll RPE your butt and mouth tonight as well as your widen pages. Kaminari froze at that and nodded. You know, I'm really sorry for what I said all this time, Jiro. Kyoka nodded and said, Yep, but you still getting punished, tiny PP Pikachu. As she remembered what Kaminari told them during his punishment. Apparently the dude was only 2 inches. Too small to even really penetrate any girl. Which made his perverse nature seem very peculiar. Wait, you're only 2 inches long, and we're being a perv this whole time? Asked Toru, making us all cackle like SDSDS. Kaminari slumped down and groaned while he nodded. That's stupid. Why be a perv when you can't even please a woman with that tiny thing? Kaminari grumbled as we kept the insults going. Eventually, we went downstairs, leaving Kaminari to clean up the floor. I wondered how the rest of the week was going to go for us as I sat down, grabbing some breakfast. We had our breakfast before heading off to class. Boy, was the student surprised at who will be paying us a visit today. The Big Three, consisting of Mirio, Lemillion Toga, Nijire-chan Hado, and Amajiki Suneater Tamaki. For some reason, Mirio kept glancing at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. It got so annoying. I DM in, near screamed at Aizawa that I needed an adult and stranger danger. Seriously, what the hell? I ain't into dudes, and this Tintin/Fallout mascot looking was eyeballing me and annoying the hell out of me. Sigh him anyway. The moron decided that we should totally do a 1 versus 20 to show the difference a work study does. Idiot forgot their 3rd years and we be 1st years. No way were the other 19 students prepared to face off against any one of them. Funny enough, Tashinori messaged me, stating Night Eye basically wants Mirio to WHP my, but so he could force me to give Mirio OFA. Ha 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 ha, curse you. Night Eye, you dead dude. Ahem ahem. Apologies. That idiot deserved getting killed by Overbitch for what he forced Aerie to go through for the past 2 years. Anyway, as I surmised, the 19 others got smoked by the naked Oko smash of Mirio. I smiled viciously as he rushed me. He tried to Oko me only to be shocked at my durability. Sorry, Mirio. You can't beat me. Tell Mirai that number 9 is not under his control after you wake up from this. I said as I shot below him, and then slid through his legs at 35% full cowling, making him think I disappeared and delivered a 5% neck chop to him, knocking him out cold before he could even realize what was happening. The other 2 of the Big Three, as well as the 19 students, were in awe at that. After a few minutes, and Mirio woke up, he was looking around. Oh, what happened? He asked as Nijire chuckled. You got Oko-ed by Midoriya-san. It was hilarious. Niza even filmed it. She said in her bubbly voice as she pointed to a laughing Mizu with a video camera. Sighing, Mirio went about explaining his quirk and its drawbacks before he explained the work studies to the other students. I told Mirio again to tell Nightai number 9 is beyond his control. The message confused him, but he did as asked. After classes ended for the day, we all went back to the dorms. As we got to the girls' floor, Rei, Fuyumi, and Mitsu were there smiling at me. Oh, what's up? I asked, forgetting what the schedule for today was after getting angry at Night Eye. The entire HRM face-bombed at this. Sigh. Izuku, remember the schedule today? You get to bang the CC Rei and Fuyumi today, though each has a similar request to me. Said Mitsu. I nod. That's nice. Sorry, I had gotten mad at what? I shouted before passing right the hell out. I woke up on my bed as the HRM smiled at me, feeling bodies on either side of me. What happened? I asked as my eyes fluttered around the room. I suddenly realized both Rei and Fuyumi Himura are cuddling me, with my arms between their melons. Hee, not gonna lie, you too. I always love that. Oh, quit blushing, Fuyumi. You know you enjoyed it too. Oh, now that's just rude, Missy. Rei. Fuyumi is being mean to me again. How the hell, Fuyumi? That SHD hurt. Anyway, back the smartness of wordificationness. Ahem. The HRM then explained I passed out after hearing Rei and Fuyumi also want impregnated by me. I became a living strawberry as I looked from Ray to Fuyumi, then back to the 6-1A girls. Okay, was basically all I remember saying, mainly cost my brain, said F you, and nope the hell out. Still looking for it to this day. Ahem, sorry for going off tangents again. Ahem. The entire HRM squealed, so high-pitched it shattered the universe, and I was forced to beg Xeno-sama. Ow slap. Thud. Shink. Crack-a-boom. How the hell? Narrator San slapped the taste out of my mouth before I was hit with a jackhammer by Goldberg, before shanked by Jason Voorhees, and then blown up by Doom Guy. Stop breaking the fourth wall, you're confusing the hell out of the readers. We need them to like this dude. Author San fine, but that was funny jackass. Oh no dragon, on Narrator San. Sigh. Anyway, back to the story, goddamn it. I mean, they squealed so high-pitched it shattered the windows for the entire dorm. The boys, scared to death, all huddled together, while simultaneously praying for their safety and crying for fear the Antichrist has suddenly appeared. I groaned after pulling my fingers out of my ears. Geez, I think you girls just shatter my eardrums. Thank God I heal. Hee, causing the HRM to all blush. Okay, so you're really okay with me and Fuyumi wanting to have your kid/kids? Asked Ray. I blinked a few times before looking from Ray to Fuyumi and smiling softly. Well, yes. That would be amazing. I said, making all the girls smile bright, which DMN near matched my smile and wattage collectively. I smiled as my eyes regenerated from the intense heat given off by their smiles. You definitely got a lot more confident around girls, Deku, said Ochako. I shrugged. Well, that's actually due to all of you being with me, as well as rescuing Luna. Knowing I have 9 of the best women alive, as my HRM definitely helped me gain confidence. I said as the girls all smiled at me again. That's good to hear, Zuko, said a gushing Momo. We're all here for you, just as you were here for us. I smiled at the praise before I spoke again, with a serious expression on my face. Also, tomorrow I keep my word to Goddess of Ice Rei Himura and Princess of Flames and Ice Fuyumi Himura. Both women flinched at that before looking at me. You mean? Ray asked nervously. I nodded. Yes. Enji's days as a hero are over. Nizu will force him to face me under threat of blackmailing him with the evidence of his sins against you and your children and the many crimes he committed throughout his hero career. We have been ordered and granted permission to do this from the Prime Minister of Japan himself the day I went to save Luna. I said as my eyes glowed with determination and power. The two women hugged me closer to them as tears fell from their eyes, as the rest of the HRM were in awe at the order I was given. Thank you, Aizu Izuku. They both shouted in unison between their heavy breaths as they each kissed my cheeks. The other 7 all wept with happiness as Fuyumi and Ray explained what Enji had done to them and the 3 Todoroki boys, including his murder of Toya for being a failed weapon and waste of genetics. They looked at me with eyes narrowed, saying, If you need our help, just ask Izuku. We will murder that arrogant little beach. They said in unison. I smiled, knowing they meant that before I sighed and said, It's all good. I'm more than that flaming Riri can handle. But I appreciate the sentiment of you well, Shoto, and I better head to his agency now. He put on the news. I'm sure you're all going to love it as Nizu hacked into the worldwide news channels, and they're setting up just outside of it. The HRM all went wide-eyed, and we went down to the common room where Shoto was waiting, confused as to why I requested his presence to head to his SBRM donors agency. One explanation later, and a sadistic smile crept across his face that would give Aizawa pause for concern. We bid farewell to the HRM and the boys before I grabbed Shoto and began using 100% full cowling to head to Endeavor's agency. Finally, Mother, Fuyumi, Natsuo, and myself will be free of that man. Make him hurt Izuku. I nodded as we flew through the air due to my jumps. Absolutely. He will regret that he forced a quirk marriage upon your mother and abused you all, I said with power in my voice. A few jumps later, and we landed right in front of the agency. I waited outside, smiling and waving to the cameras. A few moments later, he walked an annoyed Enji and a smirking Shoto. What do you want, boy? Did you come here to beg me for a work study? he growled out before I leaked a massive amount of killer intent straight at Enji. Enji Todoroki, aka Villain Endeavor. I, Izuku Deku Midoriya, am here to make you pay for your crimes. For the sins you have committed, not only on your very own wife and children, but the thousands of citizens as well throughout your hero career. I hope you said your prayers, Enji, for you will need a god to help you survive this day. I said through gritted teeth, barely capable of holding in my rage for Enji. The dumb laughed at me as he had yet to realize that over 20 cameras were filming us. Huh? Oh really? So what's a weak, but kid like you who can barely control his power going to do to me? Besides, I have the HPSC in my pocket, boy, he said rather smugly. I smirked at him. For the abuse you put on Shoto, Fuyumi, Natsue, and Toya Todoroki, the beatings as well as the rapes of Rei Himura and murder of Toya Todoroki. For the thousands of innocents you murdered without care throughout the entirety of your hero career. I will not only break and damn near kill you, but use my healing quirks to do so again and again and again until I grow bored and toss your but into Tartarus my DMN self. Then I will do the same to all the corrupt members of HPSC. This is an order given to me from the Prime Minister of Japan himself. Say farewell to your freedom and hero career, I exclaimed as I powered up to 100% full cowling. Enji cackled at my words. Huh, so what? I have no regrets, as in the end I'm number one and far too powerful for any to betray me, let alone too powerful to lose a fight to your pathetic butt. He smarted off before I smiled at him. Look behind me, jackass, I said as I jerked my thumb over my shoulder to reveal all the reporters and cameras. He was wide-eyed and mouth agape. Oh, looks like Enji just admitted his crimes to the world Shoto. He. Very well, Enji Todoroki. If you truly can kill me, go for it. But be forewarned, I'm 5 times as powerful as All Might was in his prime, I said with a sneer as Shoto cackles. Yep. Sorry, Enji, but you're screwed. Those cameras are recording this, and currently, this is being shown live to every worldwide network. Even if you somehow manage to slay Izuku here, your days as a hero are over, said a smirking Shoto. What? Bellowed Endeavor with a look of fear plastered upon his face. The HPSC may have been able to cover up some of his actions, but they had no way to cover this up. Trembling with rage and fear, Enji glared at me before trying to hit me with a right cross, only for me to duck under it and smash him with an uppercut straight from hell, sending him flying into the sky as the camera zoomed in and news choppers flew towards the battle. I quickly leaped up and began delivering massive 100% blows to him as I'd heal him over and over again. Endeavor, groaning, tried all his special moves on me and was enraged at the fact he could not stop me as I kept using New Hampshire smashes to stay in the sky. Every time one of his moves hit, it barely did any damage to me. Finally, fully enraged and growing desperate, he decided to use his most powerful of ultimate moves, the Plus Ultra Prominence Burn. I smirked as I knew it was coming. Right as he unleashed it, I leaped up high above him and kept circling him as I waited for his attack to end. As soon as it did, and his flaming but was barely staying afloat in the sky, I bellowed a mighty roar as I launched down towards him at insane speeds and delivered a Manchester smash, so powerful his, but was embedded into the street in front of his agency. I turned off, full cowling, as I landed beside him. So much for the new number 1 hero. He just got thrashed by a 16-year-old hero in training, I said as myself and Shoto cackled wildly before Tsukauchi arrived and placed the quirk-canceling cuffs on Enji after I yanked his butt out of the ground. I smiled to the cameras, as did Shoto, before we leapt our way back to Heights Alliance after Tsukauchi told me that Nizu and the police have already arrested the corrupt members of the HPSC. Enji was given a life sentence in Tartarus for his crimes without the possibility of parole. He barely avoided the death penalty due to the now Himura family demanding he suffer for the rest of his life and didn't deserve to take the easy way out. But that was ruled later. Currently, though, Shoto and I arrived at Heights Alliance, and I was tackled by all the members of my HRM when we walked in. Fuyumi and Rei hugged me as they wept tears of joy at the fact their tormentor was finally going to face true justice for his actions. After about 30 minutes, they finally got off me and helped me to my feet. The boys all were amazed at the power I displayed and the fact the Prime Minister ordered me to take down Endeavor. I smiled before pulling out my wallet. Oh yeah, about that. I may have forgotten that I was granted a full hero license when I received the order. Technically, I'm already a pro hero, but since I still need to finish school, I will continue being in 1A. I said, surprising the entirety of 1A and the HRM. I smiled brightly at them all before Ray and Fuyumi dragged me upstairs. As the HRM took Shoto aside, most likely to explain he was probably getting another sibling and either a niece or nephew. No sooner had I gotten into my room did the two Himiras begin stripping. After my brain clicked back in thanks to Nana, who cackled saying in joy in my head, did I begin stripping also. Soon we all stood in my room naked. Holy hell did the two of them look amazing. Ray was slim with amazing melons with small nips with medium-sized areola and a thick yummy butt. She had a well-trimmed bush and some stretch marks from already having 4 children, and her melons did have a bit of sag to them, but still was a 10 in my book. Fuyumi was equally as CC. She had large plump melons with large nips and small areola. She shaved her big hair and had a slight chub to her stomach, and thighs, but holy did she look divine. Both stood before me, blushing as they saw my naked form and my blushing face. Hee, how do you stay so innocent that you blush and occasionally faint around women when you have already bed 7 babes Izu? Asked Ray with a smile. I have no idea. I admitted as honestly, I don't know. I think that I was just modifying my past behavior in an effort to avoid misconceptions of the readers, but I don't care as there's a CC mother-daughter duo naked before me. Ahem, now to the adult stuff. Seeing as both women want me to release inside their wet pussies, I said F you to the condoms and was leaping for joy inside my head. Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom, meanwhile in the living world, the two Himura women had walked over with a slight swivel to their hips. They each gave me a hug and kissed me before pulling me and tossing me onto the bed as I chuckled. They decided that Rue would give me head as I ate out Fuyumi. Ray crawled between my legs and began skinning me off as she rubbed my ball. Meanwhile, Fuyumi sat down on my chest with a full body blush, taking a few deep breaths before she nodded and sat on my face. Holy hell was her version, snatch, tasting divine. Fuyumi was squeaking loudly as Ray popped off my PP for a second to say, DMN Izu, your PP tastes amazing. I need to work on trying to inhale this massive PP of yours to the base. You are way, way bigger than NG. I enjoyed the compliments as she started back up while I was making Fuyumi squeak like a beach in heat. Oh yes, Mommy is so good at this, she said as my tongue was going to town on her dripping snatch. Ray had gotten about 6 inches of my PP in her mouth before pulling back to only hold 2 inches in her mouth, and I suddenly felt her using her quirk on her hand to slide my PP with her cold hand. I squeaked into Fuyumi as she was humping my face. Holy fuck, he definitely enjoyed whatever you did, Mom, she shouted out as Ray giggled while still stroking me. A few moments later, she stopped stroking me to use her quirk on her mouth and tongue to drop the temperature to just above freezing and give one hell of a icy BLWJB. I squeaked louder into Fuyumi and pushed my tongue in as deep as I could go before she shouted, Holy cow, I'm releasing, as her body was pulsing and twitching from the effect of her CL mechs, and her PP was splashing all over my face, which tasted amazing, by the way. God damn it, Izuku made you CL mechs fast foo, said Ray after she stopped skinning me, out of surprise at how fast I made Fuyumi release. Fuyumi, meanwhile, had fallen aside and laid in bed, catching her breath. That's because he is a god at this, exclaimed Fuyumi through shuddering breaths. Ray smiled at that. Well, once I SCK him dry, I'll have to test some of that while you SCK him. Hee, giggled Ray before she went back to sking me off with her quirk in effect. That feels so good, Ray, I squeaked out as I bucked into her face. About 7 minutes later, I finally felt like releasing and told her. She smiled as she sped up her sking until I could no longer hold it back, and I shot huge ropes of release down her throat. She squeaked as she swallowed it all. Hell, Izuku, you have insanely huge loads. It tastes great too. Hee hee. I chuckled at that as Fuyumi got on her hands and knees while Rei clambered on top of me and turning to sit on my face to watch Fuyumi try her best at skinning me off. As Fuyumi took about 4 inches of my pee-pee in her throat, she stroked the remaining while I was eating Rei's delicious snatch. Both of us squeaking in pleasure. SHD. You're right, oh, Fuyumi, he's so god at this, she said as Fuyumi was bobbing up and down as she still stroked my pages. She mumbled out a reply, but didn't bother to hop off my PP, so we just kept at it. Rei, after a minute or two, was already bucking on my face before I leaned up and smirked, then started a rim job on her delicious butt. Oh, that felt so good, Izuku. She screamed out in pleasure as Fuyumi was taking more and more of my length inside her throat, going fast in an effort to make me release fast. Rei didn't last much longer after I began eating her, but in PP at different intervals. Within 2 minutes of that, she was already conksing. Good fuck yes, Izuku, she screamed as she was shiving her PP down on my face while her CLMX squirted all over me. Once the ripples of pleasure stopped flooding though her body, she rolled off of me while Fuyumi kept on skinning me off. That hell. You're a.sec god, Rei exclaimed as Fuyumi giggled. I was squeaking as I bucked my hips into Fuyumi's mouth. Yo, thanks goddess Rei. I try my best, I squeaked out as Fuyumi winked at me. Seems she really enjoys skinning you off, Izuku, said Rei with a sly grin. Bet we're both going to enjoy riding that monster. I chuckled at that. After about 8 more minutes, I was ready to blast and told her. Fuyumi almost pulled off my PP as she stroked it, giving her plenty, if room in her mouth. I didn't last but a few seconds more before I was rocketing my release in her mouth while she squeaked, swallowing every drop. Holy hell, Mom, you're right. Both his PP and release taste amazing, she said after cleaning my pages. I smiled at that and asked who want to go first. The smile before saying Fu should be first, Aizu. Hee. After that, you and I can have our turn. Fuyumi blushed and was breathing a bit heavy. I sat up as did Rei. You know, Fuyumi, if you're having second thoughts on this, I won't force it. It's best to only do it when you're ready, not a moment before. Fuyumi smiled at me. I'm ready. Just nervous, Izuku. Never thought I'd be doing this, especially with a kid 7 years my junior. Rei narrowed her eyes at Fuyumi. Oh, does that mean you find it weird that I'm going to have SEC with him when I'm almost 30 years his senior? Fuyumi shivered at Rei's teasing before shaking her head no as me and Rei laughed. It's fine, Fu. Though if you're ready to ride that magical release bop, better hurry before I take your turn. Fuyumi flinched and nodded. I asked her what position she would like, but she couldn't think of any. I winked at Rei and then said the 2 I would recommend. One being missionary with me on top, and the other being the one Toru taught me, the lotus, and described the position. Both Himuras looked at each other before Fuyumi said the lotus, as it sounded very NTMT. I smiled and helped position her as I guided my PP to her entrance, slowly lowering her onto it. Once I got against her hymen, she was taking deep breaths before saying she was ready. In a quick move, I broke her hymen as she squeaked from the pain. I kissed her in case she was going to scream, which also calmed her down. After a minute, we broke the kiss, and she was breathing a bit erratic. That hurt quite a bit, but not as bad as I thought. Give me a couple of minutes, and I'll be ready. I nodded as I rubbed her back and stroked her hair. Rei smiling at me. You really are kind and gentle. Boy, aren't you, Izuku? I nodded at her. Yeah, I don't like to hurt others, especially women. I spent my entire life being a powerless victim until I developed my quirk. So when I got it, I refused to let it change me. Fuyumi and Rei both smiled at me. He's way different than NG, huh, Mom? Asked Fuyumi as Rei giggled a bit. Very true. With Izuku, he's not one to be brash or arrogant. He definitely isn't cruel either. Just a kind, gentle boy. A few more moments pass, and Fuyumi smiles at me, saying she's ready. I kiss her as we start slowly, earning soft squeaks from her. Ooh, this eye is so good, Izuku, she says as we break our kiss. Fuyumi slowly playing with her usi as she fondles one of her melons. It looks like it, Oh, it's hot to watch, she says, one eye open and her tongue hanging out. Fuyumi was feeling more and more by the moment. God, yes, oh, you feel so wet, and oh, tight Fuyumi. I groan out as we speed up a bit. About 6 minutes goes by before Fuyumi is arching her back from the powerful orgasm flooding through her body as she starts to scream in pleasure. Fuck Izo Izuku. She screams as I slow to a stop. Ray, from watching me make Fuyumi CLMX reaches her own. Oh, SHD, yes, that's a so hoot. She squeaked out as the waves of pulse through her. After they each catch their breath with Fuyumi holding me in a tight embrace and her head on my shoulder, she says, "Holy hell, Izu, you have to be the best ever at this." I giggle at her. To be honest, I still don't really know much about what I'm doing. Just going on instinct, I say as the both of them seem impressed. Fuyumi giggles before saying she's ready to finish. I smile at her as we start back up. Oh, that feels amazing, Izuku. I think I'm addicted to all this big pages. I grunt in pleasure as we keep at it. Ray watching on. After about 8 more minutes, I tell her, "Fuyumi, I'm gonna kill." As she squeaked out, "Do it, baby." Oh, release inside. Oh, fill my womb, love. I grunt as my 2 more moves. I fire off my load deep inside her as she splashes my PP with her last orgasm. After our conks is finally finished, we held each other for a bit before I helped Fuyumi climb off of me and set her down on the bed. That was amazing, Izu. You definitely have to be the best at this. It felt divine having your seed pump into my womb, she said as she laid down. Well, thanks, he. Though not gonna lie, you were great yourself. Fuyumi smiled as she lay down. I'm so exhausted from that. You wore me out pretty good. I chuckled at her as hugged me from behind. You should rest then, Fu. It's my turn to ride that monster, said Ray as she kissed my neck. Yeah, you're gonna love it, Mom. I just need to catch some sleep for a bit, said a tired Fuyumi as she closed her eyes and soon drifted off to sleep. Well, goddess of ice, got any preferences? I ask as Ray lets me go so I can turn to face her. Nothing too fancy, though wouldn't mind just missionary with you on top. I smiled at her. Then that's fine with me, Ray. She smiled as she laid in bed and spread her legs so I could get in position. I lined myself up to her entrance as she smiled at me. I slowly entered her, allowing her to feel every inch of me. Oh, that feels incredible. DMN, you're oh huge, she said while squeaking. I smiled. Thanks. But you're still pretty tight for a mother of 4, I said as I finally got fully inside her. She smiled at that. Thanks, Izuku. You ready? I nodded as I slowly started pumping into her. She squeaked with each move. Oh, yes, it's true. Oh, you're the best at this, Izuku. I smiled at the comment as I leaned down and kissed her as she squeaked into my mouth. After we broke the kiss, she whispered to me, I never knew that making love could feel like this love. I smiled as I moved into her. Because you never been with one who loves you, and you yourself love. She squeaked louder as she nodded her head. After a few minutes passed, she arched her back, and her primal scream of passion and pleasure sprung forth from her lips, shouting my name. Oh, Izuku, yes. As she squirted hard onto my pages. She smiled at me after her CLMX finished. God, yes, that was the best orgasm of my life, Izuku. I smiled as I looked into her eyes that show life for the first time in a decade. Really? Thanks for the compliment, Ray. I'm glad to hear that. Apparently, I'm just naturally talented at this, I said as she giggled. Well, then I guess it's time you shoot that huge load deep in my womb and allow me to become a mother to a child that knows only love and compassion. Then love? I smile as I say yes and start back up again, earning more squeaks from the goddess. Soon the room was filled with sounds of passion yet again as our flesh slapped into each other. After about 10 minutes, I felt ready to release. Here it releases, Ray. Oh, I shout as she squeaks. 2 moves later, I pump my load deep inside her as she squeaks from her 4th and final orgasm of the night. After our waves of passion, final ebb, Ray smiles as I pull out of her. DMN, Izuku, you're the best ever. She says as we're both covered in sweat from the effort. You no slouch yourself, Ray. She chuckles a bit before we lay down beside Fuyumi. Thanks, Izuku. Phew. I hope that I'm PRG and NT from this, Izuku. Wouldn't mind having you, baby. Plus, without NG to torture them, I'm fairly certain they'd turn out very well. I smiled at her. I hope so too, to be honest. Hee hee. We speak for a few more minutes before we both feel the exhaustion lull us into sleep. As morning rose the day after myself, Ray, and Fuyumi had CC, we awoke with the memories flooding through our minds of the night. Can't believe we really did that, mother, said a crimson Fuyumi as Ray and I smiled at each other before agreeing with Fuyumi. Yeah, hee hee. I must say, Izuku, that was a splendid evening to share together, though I, too, am amazed we three did that last night. I smiled as we all got up and went to shower together. My God, I never imagined this would be my life after the hell I had to survive growing up. I mean, if I knew this as a kid, I don't think I'd ever have felt as depressed and worthless as I did. We got dressed and went to exit the room, only to see the blushing faces of the other 7 members of the HRM. So how was your day? Asked a lilac Mina, causing myself and both Himuro women to turn neon red. Well, let's just say that you girls were right about our Izuka here. He's definitely got some godly skills to match his peerless pages. Though I have a feeling that we will be right up there with Mitsuki to be PRGNNT with his divine children, said Fuyumi as I stumbled a bit before it all hits me. Oh, SHD. I'm barely 16 and possibly already have 3 PRGNNT girlfriends, all older than myself. Mom is going to be both incredibly happy that I've got kids, but absolutely livid that I impregnated 3 older women, and one of which is her best friend. The HRM apparently thought this was the funniest thing ever, and all were laughing their melons off at my sheer terror. Ha ha, Aizu, it's fine. Inko basically gave us her approval, seeing as we're each old enough to decide for ourselves, and we each truly love you, said Mitsu, which both relaxed and terrified me, even more as apparently Mom is whoring me out. Screw it. I got no complaints. Well, at least until the demonic mood swings and hormones take over in myself and my classmates get Sikiidi into that hell. Maybe I should ask Aizawa to find Mineta and build a torture dungeon for the 3 to take their rage out on. Though maybe with Kaminari too, but I think I need the other HRM members' approval. They probably won't take issue with it. Ahem. Anyhow, myself and the 9 HRM members all made our way down to the common room, whilst Kaminari was busy with cleaning up after his fun time spent with the other 7 members last night. That boy's poor, but so wide now, I think even a fully gigantified Gigantomachia could moonwalk his way up in there without even touching the sides. The boys having figured out to give us a wide berth stayed on the other side of the room, minus Shoto, who was giddy as hell and actually smiling, which creeped out most of the boys. Hey Shoto, you look happy finally, I said, smiling brightly at him. He laughed before saying, well, seeing as my best friend now is both my brother and father, and Enji is in prison, I finally started letting go of all my anger and depression. I chuckled as Fuyumi and Ray gawked over the newly reborn Shoto as they were reminded of him in the past before Ray had her mental break. Well, I didn't know about all that, but I'm glad that you were finally able to get over the past. Well, I'll be here for you, bro. Who knows, maybe now you could finally move forward with your life, I said as he smiled even brighter. We were all busy chatting amongst ourselves before Aizawa and All Might came in and took me aside. Oh, what's going on, sensei? I asked Aizawa, who was looking grimmer than usual. He and Toshi shared a look as they were sweating. Young Midoriya, we receive a request for you from Naitai to help join his investigation into a Yakuza group known as Shai Hasaikai, said a grim-faced Tashinori. I tilted my head. Okay, but why do the pair of you look as if you're about to die on the spot? I asked, still confused about the whole of what they were talking about. Problem child. The Yakuza group is led by a man known as Overhaul. We looked into the situation after reviewing the information Naitai sent. This man has the ability known as Overhaul. He can destroy and reshape anything he touches however he sees fit, biological or not, meaning if he were to touch anyone, he could literally destroy them in an instant. On top of that, his organization is suspected of creating the newest versions of quirk boosters that if he were to take, not even your healing powers would be able to stand a chance against him. As well, he has zero care for anyone but himself. He would kill anyone who stands in his way, regardless of age, gender, or quirk. Meaning problem child. If you were to face him, the odds of you winning are slim to none. even with Nightai and his agency accompanying you. I started to understand a bit more of the situation and could see why they looked so scared. If I were to aid in the investigation and face Overhaul in battle, I would be basically screwed, which means I'm probably going to have to fight him knowing this messed up universe. Seriously, why the hell does all this SHD happen to me? Did I PSS off some ancient god in a past life? I see. Sensei, what's the details of this supposed investigation? Did Night Eye grant any information about it? All Might spoke before Aizawa could get a chance. Apparently, Overhaul has been spotted with a pair of small children in hospital gowns while covered in bandages. Night Eye believes them to be Overhaul's children and wishes to essentially kidnap them from Overhaul in an effort to bring him into a confrontation and arrest him. Yet even worse, though, is apparently Shai Hasaikai has access to not just quirk boosters, but also quirk-canceling ammo. They have no proof it's real yet, but according to spies in the Yakuza, Overhaul has found a way to cancel quirks, either temporary or permanently. We are not yet certain. Now it made sense why they looked so terrified. So basically Night Eye wants to use me as a bullet sponge to test if they have quirk erasing ammo or not. I asked with a snarl, shocking the two men. Sigh. We believe, so yes, problem child, said a clearly angered Aizawa. Who else is involved in the investigation? All Might. I asked as Toshinori sighed. He said it was currently just the Night Eye agency until they get confirmation on all their suspicions. If I were Night Eye, I'd stop focusing on me and work on joining forces with multiple top 50 heroes in an effort to fully investigate the situation, then try this little bait and SWCH maneuver he is working on. I said in a harsh tone. I looked to All Might and spoke. Tell him I will only join if he asks other big-name agencies to join forces with him in this investigation. Tell him I am not his plaything and his opinions of me matter not. I need the full information, not bits and pieces or possibilities, but facts. Toshinori sighed as he understood what I meant. The pair left as I took a few deep breaths to help relax before I returned inside to mingle with my class and HR. As we were talking an hour or so later, I noticed a tug happening on me, which felt familiar before I heard a whisper calling out my name. About a minute later, I finally realized Luna was trying to contact me again. I excused myself and went to the teacher's dormitory to speak with Luna. When I got there, she looked a bit downtrodden, which given her past trauma was to be expected. Hello, Izuku. I'm glad that you got my message, she said with a shadow of a smile on her lips. She sighed and looked me dead in the eyes. What's wrong, Luna? You seem very anxious and afraid. I asked, worried for her. Luna took a few breaths before she spoke. I know what the teachers told you earlier. They spoke with me as one of my quirks is precognition. I was surprised to hear that, to say the least. She spoke about how it was forced on her and can see up to a month in advance, but it doesn't work on her own future, but those of others. Aizu, if you accept this job, there's a high likelihood you will die. You will succeed only in delaying Overhaul and his quest. He will manage to slay you and several high-profile heroes before escaping with the children in tow. Those he fails to kill will permanently lose their quirks. What I'm saying, Aizu, is that you will fail and accomplish nothing in the end. I was rocked to the core at her words. If what she says is true, then the only choice I have is to not help at all. I sighed and asked her, Luna, what's the results of if I do not aid Night Eye in this investigation? Luna groans, but explains. If you do nothing, then even more lives will be lost and more quirks permanently erased. I smiled softly with sadness in my eyes. So either option fails in the end, is that right? I asked as she nods, knowing what my choice will be. Then I might as well accept it, as you said, no matter what, lives and quirks will be permanently lost, but more so if I stand by and do nothing. She nodded along before she looked me in the eyes. I knew you'd choose to go, but I ask one thing of you, Izuku. Promise me that you'll return. No matter what, promise me that you will not let this be your end. Can you do that? I smiled bright as I locked eyes with her. You know it, Luna. I will defy any fates to return safe and sound. I will not lose as too much rides on this. After all, as you said the day I saved you, I am the one this world has chosen. She smiled as she hugged me. She whispered in my ear a few words I failed to understand, and after we broke the hug, I tried asking her what it was she said. She just smirked and said it was a secret. We spoke a bit more before I had to return to Heights Alliance. I bid her farewell as night had fallen by the time I returned to my room. I let the words Luna said reverberate inside my mind as I thought on how I can keep my promise, while she stated no matter what, this investigation will lead to many lost lives, as well as people losing their quirks forever. I tried thinking on how could Overhaul even manage to erase someone's quirk temporarily, let alone permanently. No one's POV. The pair of twins sat huddled together in their room below the Yakuza mansion, having just returned from yet another round of mindless torture. The two little girls could not understand why they were forced to live such miserable existences. Why was all they could ask. Why the universe saw fit to curse them. Why they could not live normal, happy lives. For 4 years, these little girls have suffered endless tortures by the man in the bird mask. They'd beg for someone to save them from their miserable existence every day. But today they saw something that never once imagined seeing. The bird mask brought a TV set to their room a day ago and turned it on in an effort to make the girls less likely to escape. However, what they didn't count on was a certain battle taking place that day. What no one could imagine was the little girls would be inspired by a young man facing a fiery demon in battle and besting him with ease. Today, Eri, we find the boy today. We cannot stay here. Overhaul will kill us and hurt us forever. But maybe, just maybe that boy can save us, Eri, said one girl to the other. Eri looked around the room, then at her bandages. She hated the pain Overhaul brings. But what hurt her more than anything was seeing the bandages on her sister's body. Okay, Yuki, we must find that boy. But how will we escape? Yuki and Eri whispered a plan and soon put it into motion. Izuku's POV. A few days have passed since my talk with Luna. Night Eye had given us the information we needed and has even acquiesced my request of having other big-profile heroes join in on the investigation. Soon we had many heroes and provisional heroes in training searching the city to help in the investigation. I was accompanied by MullinLiam as we made our way through the streets. We spoke a bit about each of our pasts when suddenly I was slammed into by 2 small children when we passed an alleyway. I knelt down, and before us stood 2 little snow-colored hair girls, each with a horn on one side of their heads. One had brilliant ruby-colored eyes, and the other had eyes of the most crystalline blue. They were in gowns and covered in bandages. Both myself and MullinLiam understood immediately who these girls were. Hey, you two, what's wrong? I asked with a smile as Mirio kept an eye on the street and alleyway. Help us, mister. Don't let the bird guy get us no more. They begged when Mirio suddenly called my attention. I looked up, and there at the end of the alley was the very Birdman they escaped. Kai Chisaki. Overhaul. With a look of utter rage and fury as his fists were clenched and veins visible on his forehead. I looked from the very terrified little girls to Mirio and smiled. Mirio, take them and go, I said as I stood to my full height, the girls squeezing on each of my legs, whimpering. Mirio looked nervously from myself to Overhaul, then to the girls. Midoriya, are you insane? He asked as I smiled and nodded my head. I knew if I did nothing the girls would be recaptured. If I left with the girls, then Mirio would die. Our best shot at saving the pair was me staying behind to distract Overhaul. MullinLiam, please take them and run. I can handle Overhaul. But if they go back to him, then this will end in losses most devastating. If I leave with them, you will die. Please, Mirio, take the girls and run. I may be your junior in age, but unlike yourself, I am a full-fledged hero. Take them and run. Little ones, trust me. I can handle MullinLiam here. He will protect you and get you somewhere safe. I said as I began to power up OFA, cranking it higher and higher. Fine, but don't die, Midoriya. Come on, little ones, let's get away from here, said Mirio as he bent down and picked the 2 teary-eyed girls up. I smiled at them and nodded as Mirio raced away. I turned to see Overhaul rushing at me and snag both his wrists just as he reaches me. Sorry, Overhaul. They're no longer yours to torment. Overhaul glared at me as his eyes went wide. You knew who I was, and yet you still stole my cures from me? Is your disease rotting your mind so much you believe yourself a match or better to me, boy? He growled out as I smiled with my eyes closed. Sorry, Birdo, but I have no diseases. Just can't stand by when people need help and do nothing. I saw the abuse signs on their bodies and eyes. You put those girls through hell, didn't you? I asked as I squeezed his wrists harder and harder. He groaned from the pain as he yanked as hard as he could, trying to free himself from my grasp. What does it matter, boy? Those cursed children serve me, not you or anyone else. Let me go, boy, or face your destruction. He ordered as I sighed before I squeezed hard enough to shatter his wrists as I kicked him away. Cursed children? How dare you try and pass the blame off on something so ignorant as them being cursed? The only curse those little girls suffered from was being captured and abused by you. I roar as my power skyrockets. I stomped towards Overhaul as he picked himself up. He barely managed to heal his arms and prep a fighting stance when I reached him. I ped back my right arm and was about to deliver a powerful smash of unequaled might before the retort of a gun could be heard. I stopped dead in my tracks as I looked down, only to see a dart stuck in my chest. Suddenly, OFA and my healing quirk both died down. The jade sparks disappeared, and I felt myself lose the quirks. My eyes went wide as I heard Overhaul begin to cackle. Well, it looks like you lose, schoolboy. It's time for me to take my pound of flesh from you and hunt that other boy down who stole my cures. I looked behind the BSDRD, and standing there smiling with a look of rage was Masaru. Before I knew what was happening, I felt my right arm blow apart down to the atom. I roared in agony as I reached up to grab where my arm used to be, but just then both my legs get blown up by Overhaul, who cackles wildly before snapping his fingers as the rest of his men came rushing to his side. Damn it, you'll never get them, Overhaul. Even if you do, the heroes will stop you and take them away yet again. I roared as I heard Masaru chuckling to my right. He stepped next to me before he knelt down and glared at me. The last thing I remembered was him pointing a gun between my eyes and pulling the trigger. Mirio's POV. I had managed to rush back to Night-Eye with the young ones in my arms. They were crying as they begged me to return to Midoriya and help him. I was torn. I yearned to aid my junior, but at the same time, it would have only resulted in me suffering the same fate as him. I knew in my heart Izuka Midoriya to sacrifice his life to allow me to escape with the girls. I reached the agency and rushed to Night-Eye's conference room, which was full of the pro heroes, and fell to my knees. Please, sir, save Midoriya, was all I could get out from my exhausted state. The pros rushed us and asked for answers when suddenly Bubble Girl rushed in teary-eyed, yelling for us to turn on the news. Night-Eye did as asked, and everyone let out mournful wails. The news was covering an irate Overhaul surrounded by his men and nailed to a cross they dragged to the street, and set up was the corpse of Izuku Midoriya, a bullet hole in the middle of his forehead, missing his arm and both his legs, but with not a look of fear or rage on his face. No, he was smiling. Dear God in heaven, yelled Aizawa as we watched in horror. Overhaul ordered his men to start slaughtering civilians and stated he'd only stop if the girls were returned to him. Just as this was happening, the girls who accompanied Ryukyu entered the room, and all three shrieked in terror. Ochako Uraraka and Tsuyu Ajui both were crying as they collapsed to their knees. Night-Eye and the other pros began to try and coordinate an attack when the phone rang. Sir picked it up, and dread filled his face. I know not who called, but whoever was out there fear of God into him. He hung up before he looked at the heroes. We are to send every hero to help coordinate a escape path for the civilians, but not to combat the Shiha Saikai. Those are my orders given by the HPSC themselves. We are also to turn the girls over to their representative, who should be arriving soon. He said in a morose tone. I was enraged at this, as was the majority of the heroes, when two whimpers caught our attention. The two little girls Izuku gave his life to save were crying and shivering in fear. They huddled together against the wall. I looked from them to Night-Eye. Forgive me, sir, but I will not allow that. Deku didn't just sacrifice himself to let these girls get taken by the HPSC and let heroes allow Shiha Saikai to do as they please. I said with as much power I could put into my voice as possible. To my surprise, all but Night-Eye stood beside me as we placed ourselves between Sir and the girls. Before we could act, the blue-eyed girl said something that none of us were expecting to hear. Keep Aries safe. I'll go back to Birdie Overhaul. Just protect my sister. Please, Mirio. My heart was in my throat as I looked back to see a look full of determination on the young girl's face as a terrified Eri looked at her sister. No, Yuki. Please don't go back to him, shouted Eri as her sister shook her head. If I don't, Eri Moore will die like Deku did. As long as Overhaul has one of us, he will leave. So I will do it. To repay Deku, I will go back to Birdie Overhaul. Before we could do anything, the little girl called Yuki disappeared before our eyes as Eri screamed her sister's name to the very heavens. I looked at the TV, and there standing in front of Deku's corpse was Yuki, crying as she smiled up at him. Damn it, what was the point in Midoriya dying if even one of them returns to Overhaul? Yelled Ryukyu and Nijire as chaos erupted in the room. I could do nothing but kneel beside the tearful Eri and hug her as she wept in my arms. She wept hard for her sister and her savior. Yuki's POV. I'm sorry, Mr. Deku. I'm so sorry for getting you killed. If I never talked Eri into escaping Overhaul, you'd still be alive. Forgive me. I said as I wept for the boy who gave his life so my sister and I could flee to safety. I looked around and saw Overhaul glaring at me, as was the man who joined Overhaul a few days ago. Good. We got back Yuki, but where is Eri? Said the man Masaru. I think he's called. I shook my head, and with what little courage I had, I shouted, Only me. You'll never get Eri ever again, Overhaul. I saw even more fury built up on Overhaul's face as he stomped his way towards me. I could hear shouts of fear and agony from people in the distance. I knew what was happening and what Overhaul was about to do, but I won't be afraid anymore. I will not let Overhaul have his way. Just as I was about to use my quirk on him, I felt him grab me and blow me apart. He used his quirk to return me to life as I shouted in pain from feeling the torment of being blown up and put back together. I felt every bit of it as if he wanted me to feel it and suffer. I was gasping as I was on my hands and knees as the pain crashed all over my body. Exhausted, I still smiled and looked at Overhaul. Deku smiled as he gave his life. I'll gladly smile as you take mine. I will not let you torture my sister ever again, Overhaul. I shouted in defiance, enraging Overhaul even more. He again blew me apart and pieced me together time and time again. As each time was put back, I could see heroes arriving and doing nothing. Foolish cursed brat. Yuki, you and Eri belong to me, to do with as I please. Not to that fool of a diseased child or to heroes. Only to me. You're my playthings to use as I see fit. I will use the two of you to erase everyone's quirks. You will be my tool to become the emperor of this pathetic society. So tell me now, where's your little beach of a sister? He yelled at me as I breathed heavily. Those words hurt so much. I try to keep heart and stand up for myself and Eri, but I'm not strong enough to beat Overhaul. Just then a voice fills my head. Do not fret, little one. Izuku saved me, and he promised to save you and your sister and return to me alive. He never breaks his promises. I opened my eyes wide as I looked around for the speaker when I noticed it. No one's POV. As the heroes stood by doing nothing, many civilians and even heroes were being slaughtered by the Shaiha Saikai. Naitai and his associates arrived to a bloodbath as only Mirio and the 1A girls stayed behind to keep guard of Eri. But they and all the heroes and civilians left, standing watched the scene before them, to see something beyond all belief happen before their very eyes. In a flash of purest jade, the corpse of Izuku disappeared as an all-powerful pressure filled the sky. In Nijire's arms, Yuki suddenly appeared, and, just as that happened, all members of the Shaiha Saikai, except Overhaul and Masaru, were beaten unconscious. Now standing tall, and no longer smiling, stood Izuku, Midoriya, glaring with a fury to rival the Big Bang itself visible on his face. Izuku's POV. Overbit, you done screwed up hard. You have killed many in your quest for power. You kidnapped and tortured two innocent little girls to use their quirks to benefit you and you alone. You sided with Masaru to kill me and slaughtered hundreds this day. But this ends now. Turn yourselves in and I'll let this go. Resist, and I'll tear your arms off and beat you to within an inch of your lives. I roared as I stood tall before Masaru and Overhaul. Standing there at full power, I cracked my knuckles as silence took over the entire street. No one moved a muscle, unable to understand the situation before their very eyes. When suddenly Yuki screams at the top of her lungs, "Stop him, Deku! Make him go away and never hurt anyone ever again." Almost as if this was a starter's pistol, these words caused Overhaul to launch himself at me. I smiled and uppercut him into the sky before I rushed Masaru and began waylaying him with smash after smash. I blasted him with everything I had, taking him to the limit and healing him 3 full times before I heard Overhaul falling back to earth. I leapt to where he was about to land and slammed a roundhouse across his face. He was propelled with massive force into the pile of the Shy Hasaikai members. They all were launched clear to the end of the street before I yet again focused on Masaru. "You know, I cherished you as an uncle, even with all the pain your demon seed unleashed on me. I truly trusted and loved you, Masaru. Yet in the end, you were the Ainitao cause for my hell. You tricked Katsuki into becoming my tormentor. You betrayed Mother and Mitsuki and knew from day one when my torment started. Yet you hid it all. But then you even let Katsuki rot, as you left Mitsuki only to become a villain. You're just as bad, if not worse, than Overhaul," I said in a dark tone as I stomped my way to Masaru. He looked on in sheer terror, trying to understand what was happening. "How are you still alive, you worthless release?" He barked out. I smiled as I stood over him. "My friend Luna. She saved me today in order to repay me for saving her. Now hold still. This will only hurt for a second," I said as I pegged back my arm and smashed him in the gut with an almighty punch. He passed out instantly as I reached down, healing what was left of his broken body. I hit him so hard, I tore his legs clear off his body. F it. He deserved it, and even worse. Just as I turned to focus on Overhaul, I was met by a sight straight out of Dante's Inferno. Overhaul had fused with every member of the Shy Hasaikai. I groaned as I shouted for everyone to evacuate. "I will admit your revival and brute strength were enough to outmatch me, boy. But now I stand before you with the powers of God. You will suffer for eternity for stealing my cures from me. Even if I get them back, you will not live to see it," bellowed the fool who literally just made himself a bigger target. I cackled loudly as I looked at the hellish amalgamation. "Is this supposed to intimidate me, Birdbrain? You may have massive amounts of power now, but you're too large to be a proper threat to me," I said with a SHD eating grin. In the blink of an eye, I rocketed towards him and delivered a powerful kick to his gut, tearing him in half. As his lower body shot down the street, I leaped up and began smashing him with hundreds of blows, tearing the biomass that made up the majority of his body to pieces. I ended with a push kick that launched him clear across the city. I sighed as I rushed towards him. He barely had managed to put himself back together before I unleashed a second flurry of godly blows upon him. For 10 minutes, I unleashed every punch and kicked in my arsenal before I blasted him into the sky with a massive uppercut. I jumped up higher than I'd been knocked up and followed him down to earth, building up momentum for my final attack. The most powerful Detroit smash I had ever thrown up until that point. He was blasted into the ground so hard he left a 100-foot deep crater. Not that he minded much as the hit knocked him stone. I grumbled as I leapt down into the hole and found him and his men all unconscious. "Sorry, not sorry, Birdo, but let's get you all up to the surface," I said as I dragged them all up to the road. By the time I had lifted the last of them out, Tsukachi and the rest of the police and heroes who had been called to the battle arrived. Well, seeing as I still stand, I guess the Emperor here was not as prophetic as he believed himself to be. Hee. Hey, Tsukachi, can you guys take it from here? I have a pair of twins to meet." Tsukachi just laughed and told me he'd handle the paperwork. I smiled as I rushed toward the Naitai agency. So, this was the end of part 3 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.